Go ahead, kick it off.
So I'm happy we haven't talked about this. I loved his video. Absolutely loved it. And I'll tell you why. It reminds me of something we've seen recently, and I'm not even going to say that there's any cause here. Probably it's just coincidence, but when the Daily Wire had Jeremy Boyne come out and sort of explain the behind the scenes of the business, it added a layer of transparency to a situation. And James Gunn coming out and doing that whole video, it adds a layer of like, okay, look, you can look on Twitter, see all these different theories in the back of your mind. You're thinking, wow, okay, they're not even, DC's not even going to respond to any of these things. Who knows? Maybe it's X, Y, and Z, all that. I like that James Gunn was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to come out and explain what we're doing, and walks you through literally like the business side of it. It's basically like, look, he's not talking about like the movies so much. He's talking literally about the universe. We are going to be doing, a full universe 8 to 10 years, and we're going to have all these things like Todd Phillips' Joker and Zack Snyder's, no, not Zack Snyder's Batman.
Matt Reeves' Batman.
That they're going to be, in different universes and stuff, and that we want all the people to be played by the same actors and all that. And I just loved, I didn't really care. He starts going into all the movies and stuff, and it's like, yeah, he's pitching the movies right now. It means nothing to me in reality, because I don't know what these movies are yet. We're talking years away. And of course, he's not going to say these ones are going to be crappy. He's like, it's a great film, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I just love the fact that he came out and was addressing it as like the CEO. That's like the pitch that he gives to the board. Like, here's what we're going to do. That's the pitch, and we got that. It's the behind the scenes from the business angle that I liked. I did like the way he started off by saying DC has been disconnected from like the comic book world, and it's just, like you can only say so much. Like, yeah, our movies suck, and nobody planned any of this out. So I really liked it. It made me like him a little bit more, and I'm excited to see that as the stuff unfolds.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a good that personal touch. At least if you went on Twitter and you looked at a lot of the comments, like I half expected, because I've been following the DC disaster up to this point, and it's been kind of like a fun just like train wreck to watch. It's like you can't help but watch, and I'm just deep in the videos. But when he came out with this video, part of me expected that he was going to get a ton of flack for it, with people just naysaying. And really surprisingly, you go to James Gunn's Twitter, you read the comments, and people have largely been pretty positive about it, which I was very surprised, because I'm actually not familiar with a lot of these stories. Like, some of them sound like kind of silly, and I'm I wouldn't even say I'm that interested in some of them beyond Superman of that. I'm like, will I even watch these? But I would have said the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy, which he directed, and those were if you would have told me like, hey, they're doing a Marvel movie with a talking raccoon, I would have been like, Marvel has jumped the shark, and they're done.
It gives you an insight too into like how they pitch things. He's giving you like the elevator pitch. He says one of them, it's like I think it's a Green Lantern, or no, he says another one. He's like, it's a Green Lantern sort of detective in space, something like that, and it just communicates so baseline that like, certain movies, and you go, oh, wow, that's a very simple way of describing it, but I'll probably be interested in that. And then there are other ones, where it's an animated series and he says something very simple like that, and you go, that sounds kind of dumb, but he would probably describe so many popular movies that simply.
Yeah. The lanterns concept I thought was really interesting. The way he likened it was to, what was that show with, Vince Vaughn?
Oh, True Detective. True Detective, yeah.
Yeah, True Detective with Green Lanterns.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, paints a picture for you. I do have reservations. He did say, he's like, hey, we want to use the same actors, their voices, as they're moving in and out of animated films and TV shows. That's going to be really hard to do. I'd be very surprised if they actually stick to that because of like the time commitment it would take and like how expensive it would be to have all the talent, especially for like voice acting and stuff. But I like overall, I really liked what he did. I felt like it brought people back in, and he was like, instead of just sending out a press release and making it feel very corporate, he was like, hey, like he definitely made fans feel like, hey, I have your baby. We're gonna do it right. I'm excited. You could tell he's excited about the movies,
Right.
and I think like part of like the charming part of it was he lists off all these like really kind of, at least for the common viewer, these obscure projects that like unless you're a big fan, you wouldn't know what they are. And so like the big fans are really excited about it, and like everybody else is like, okay, like I'm down for some different stuff.
Yeah,
I do understand like what I imagine they're thinking at this point is like, hey, like as he refers to it, our diamond characters, your Batman, your Superman, your Wonder Woman, like we want to help. We want to introduce other characters that can be a part of it. And I can see the strategy of like, hey, we want to introduce new characters that we can build off of and try to find like what Iron Man was in 2008. Iron Man was like, he was a secondary character. He was not a big character when that movie came out.
Exactly. I didn't even know much like about Iron Man when that movie came out, but you grew to love him just because Tony Stark was great.
Yeah, exactly. And that like, a secondary character literally was the linchpin of Marvel. So I think what they're trying to do is test out some different tones in films and then like just kind of, feel it out. And then they'll bring in your Superman, your Batman movies and like really try to lynch them on that. The only thing I do get I do have some hesitations about this idea of like, hey, we want to lean on our diamond characters to prop up these other ones. Because I feel like DCU is sort of doing that a little bit before this was all reset, where it's like, hey, like at the end of Peacemaker, Justice League shows up. I didn't watch Peacemaker. I actually heard was really good. And James Gunn, I think he wrote and directed it. I'm sure somebody would correct me.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh, Peacemaker?
I've never heard of that movie.
Oh, yeah. It's on no, it's a show. It's not a movie.
Okay.
I think it's on HBO Max or something.
Oh, okay.
All credibility gone from our podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
but like I don't. But that's the thing. I don't really have a lot of interest in the TV show content. I just by nature not as much into it. So I wonder how much, because they say they want to weave the stories in and out. Like, will the movies be able to stand alone without the TV content propping it up?
So here's what I'd say. Here's what I'd say to that. Because that's always the concern. You have to balance doing a show that everyone who goes and sees the movies is not going to have seen the show, right? That's always going to be a bigger crowd of people who see the movie but not the show. So I think WandaVision's a perfect example, and like the best example here. If a show's done right, that show is excellent. WandaVision's absolutely fantastic. And it ends, with Wanda being the Scarlet Witch. Now, the problem is Marvel knows when that show happens that not everyone has seen that who's going to see the new Doctor Strange. So then what they have to do is you have to kind of catch people up very quickly. It's a little bit of exposition in the movie, but it's sometimes like, we'll never know this because we have the curse of knowledge of knowing what happened in WandaVision. But if you're someone who goes and watches Doctor Strange and you haven't seen WandaVision and last you heard Wanda was the Avenger saving the world, you might wonder like, oh, she kind of went bad all of a sudden, right? Like, it sort of seems a little abrupt, like she's being irrational because you don't see, like, she has her want and desire for her kids, right? But like you don't see the entire show and what really builds that. So I think if you do that, I actually think Marvel messed up a little bit there and not going into maybe a little bit more, like spend a couple minutes of like just pure exposition or even, I don't think that they showed too much of WandaVision, but kind of just like, I think that WandaVision, if you're going to develop a main character into like a bad guy, like they did in WandaVision, basically like, you almost need to be more prepared for how that's going to go in a movie.
Yeah. I definitely think they that's definitely a concern, because I think your more casual superhero fans are only going to see the movie, so not really going to dig into TV content.
Yeah.
So that is something that they would have to be like mindful of. What are your thoughts on like the Superman? So one of the things he plans on introducing is the Bat family, the Batman family.
Yeah, and Bruce Wayne's
Damian.
kid.
Yeah. How do you? What are your like initial thoughts of that?
It's kind of frustrating because, like, you know that they are doing that because Batman. There have been so many iterations of Batman over the last like 4 years. You know, like they're right now they're trying. Like, it's obvious they're not just going to take a new Batman and say, "Hey, we're going to start writing this and start production on it." They're throwing all these little ones in there, I think, and all these non-Diamond characters, because I think that they want you to kind of forget about the Justice League as we know it. And so when I heard, it's going to be Batman's kid, like, I don't, it's fine, whatever. I don't know really what that's going to look like. Like, is it just going to be, obviously Bruce Wayne is still damaged goods. Like, is his kid going to be damaged goods, or is his kid going to be like a totally different vibe of superhero? Like he's not enraged and, like a very dark person. So I don't know that. I mean, that in and of itself, without knowing anything else, just hearing that they're going to be doing Batman's kid or Bruce Wayne's child, right? It makes me think they're trying to just do sort of a smoke and mirrors trick on reintroducing Batman, but because we have so many Batmans right now that we're just not going to reintroduce him again. We'll do a different character, so it's a new Batman, right? Like, you haven't seen this one before. So Damian Wayne becomes Robin. Oh, okay.
From what I understand, he's the fourth.
Waste of my breath there.
Yeah. So what I understand is he's the fourth Robin, and he's like a little psychopath assassin trained under the League of Shadows. Talia al Ghul was like impregnated by Bruce Wayne, and then basically raises Damian as like this little assassin kid, and then one day meets Bruce Wayne or Batman, and there's like a whole kind of story behind that, which I don't know all the details, but I don't know. Like I
can get behind it. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And if we get a little bit of Robin on screen, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, how bad is it? They couldn't get worse than what they've already done now. So
yeah,
it's like, all right, sure,
yeah, why not? So actually, speaking of things that they've already done, and this is like diving into some of the projects they've listed out here. What was it? Like, one of them was Waller, which I have no interest in seeing. Superman Legacy Lanterns, The Authority. So The Authority and Creature Commandos. One of the big problems that I think DC had is this problem of, hey, we want to introduce an ensemble of characters in one movie, and so why don't we just add in a line of dialogue, and then, hey, you're supposed to care about these characters. And I think like a big portion of these, at least from what I see here, Creature Commandos, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people with. Actually, one of the characters is from Suicide Squad, so it's basically like another.
James Gunn wrote Suicide Squad, right?
And he wrote the Suicide Squad, the third one, which was actually my favorite.
Oh, okay.
You got that one, and then you have The Authority, which is another ensemble. I don't know how many people are in The Authority, but The Authority is supposed to be literally a cardboard cutout of the Justice League. Like, all the characters are essentially replicas. Not exact replicas, but like they have a character called I think he's called the Midnighter, and he looks like Batman. They have another one who looks like Superman, and then a fast character. So like,
yeah,
and they're called the Authority because they're like, hey, they're the superheroes that'll do anything it takes to get the job done, including killing people. So it's like, okay, you got another Suicide Squad type show with a bunch of characters. So you have like two types of Suicide Squad shows with all these characters that are going to be introduced in a movie. And that was like the big problem I had with Suicide Squad. It was like, hey, how do you introduce this guy? Like literally in the first movie, they're like, oh yeah, this is Ropes guy. He's really good with ropes.
Good with ropes, yeah.
Yeah, he's good with ropes. So you're like, oh.
Yeah. Never met a target he couldn't hit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So those are some of the things I'm concerned about. Also, like, again, going back to like some of the potential messaging in these movies, like one thing that I like that I've read about in The Authority is both the Midnighter and that other, so the cutout Superman and this cutout Batman are gay characters that are like in a committed relationship. So doubt they will write that out. But it'll just be interesting to see how DC is influenced by political correctness and
the
wokeness. The wokeness. Because I think if they do that right out the gate, it's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, that like another example, like Paradise Lost, the Game of Thrones style all-female island from Wonder Woman's birthplace.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? I love the Wonder Woman movies. I didn't feel like, or at least I liked the first one. I didn't see the second one. I heard it was terrible.
It was awful.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. You saw it.
Awful.
But like I never thought that there was any, like, I always thought it was really cool. I was like, hey, this is a cool world. It's all women, whatever. But it was all women, but it wasn't like, hey, women's empowerment, like shit on guys.
It was just exactly. It had nothing to do with like men are inferior. It was just happened to be the Amazons were all women.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens because there's opportunities for like that's just one thing that I always keep an eye out for. It's like how Marvel is really failing by going with these secondary characters and like these woke characters and just cutouts of our favorite characters. I don't want to see DC done before it even starts.
Yeah, agreed.